Five Rings Podcast, your weekly amateur sports and Olympic sports show with Duane and Kevin. And now, without further ado, here's Duane Rollins.
And welcome to the Five Rings Podcast. I'm Duane Rollins in Toronto, Canada. Kevin Laramie joins me as always from Montreal. Kevin, how are things today in the beautiful province of Quebec?
Things has been really cold, frigid. Even the Habs are losing to the worst team in the league yesterday, so it's really a cold, blah, February, late winter type of feeling. I can't wait for March to come and get that sun back.
Kevin, the worst team in the league lost to Nashville yesterday. I'll let you in on a little secret there, but at any rate, that's
sure. There's another. Yeah, in your area, there's a lot of bad hockey teams, right?
Yeah, well, I guess, yeah. I actually watched, I had a chance last week real quickly, last Thursday, a week ago today, I watched the next great thing in hockey. I went to Peterborough, Ontario to watch the Peterborough Petes, which is a famous junior team for those listening outside of Canada. They were playing against the Erie Otters, which are not really a famous junior team, but they have the best junior prospect in the world right now in Connor McDavid, who played for Canada in the World Juniors. If you listened to the show, you would have heard us talk about him then. Had a chance to watch him live playing. I saw him play earlier live, but no, I guess he didn't. He was injured that game, but I saw him that day, and first time I saw him, and he is an incredible talent. So that's what I did last Thursday. But
is he worth all the hype?
Yeah, I think so. I was really quite stunned. I've been lucky enough because I live in Ontario, and the Ontario Hockey League is through the years has produced some of the greatest hockey players that have lived, right? I mean, there's other leagues. The Quebec leagues had Mario Lemieux come out of it, and some great goalkeepers over the years. Goaltenders, too much soccer talk.
Yep.
But the OHL, I've seen John Tavares, I've seen Eric Lindros going back a few years. I've Steve Stamkos. The Subans played in the OHL and for my Belleville Bulls. They all played there. But this guy was the best player I've ever seen live. So there's a play, and we'll move off the hockey talk quick, where he was coming straight at us. We were sitting behind the goal, and he was shorthanded. He was killing a penalty. The puck was bouncing. He had a defender that was like essentially hitting him on the side, like slashing his stick, trying to jar him. The puck was bouncing. He was like had the eye and the coordination to like click the puck down twice, and then he was right parallel to the net, and he still managed to get a shot that just missed by a centimeter, went right across. It was one of the most skilled things I've ever seen coming straight at me. He is worth all of the hype, let me tell you.
It reminds me in the mid-2000s when I saw Sidney Crosby play in junior for Rimouski. It was once in a lifetime experience that I was able to see, and in the juniors, when you get players with such a talent and such skills, they're just a level above everybody else, and they can express their talent on the ice, and it's so impressive to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, Sidney Crosby played in the queue as well as Mario Lemieux, which Mario Lemieux predates me a bit on junior, so but certainly a lot of good skill there. So that kind of it ties into a topic that we're going to do, and we'll get to the break real quick. And we have a bit of a different show today, I think is a fair way to put it. There's not a lot of news going on in the world of international sports, so we thought we'd go a little bit more fun. We're going to talk about sports that are played either only in one country or not in a lot of countries, like events that have more popularity one place than the other, and just what our favorite ones are and some of our memories of them and things like that. This is in honor of the Super Bowl, but junior hockey is, I think, a similar phenomenon in a lot of ways. So we're going to have a conversation about that in our middle segment, and then we're going to end with a brief conversation about the Australian Open, how we think Djokovic might be the most underappreciated athlete in the world right now. I think he may be one of the best athletes in the world, and I'm not sure he gets the attention that he deserves. But we have a really kind of interesting and special sort of interview that Kevin did a little earlier, and I'm just going to let you tell the listeners a bit about what we're about to hear, and then we'll throw to that interview.
We have on the Off the Woodwork Studios family of shows a wrestling podcast called Down the Aisle Wrestling Podcast that I host with one of my friends from your neck of the woods, Rob McDonald. And together we interviewed Dan the Beast Severn earlier this week, UFC Hall of Famer, Ultimate Fighting Championship legend, pioneer, who transitioned from amateur wrestling to professional fighting, no-holds-barred fighting, to eventually what's called MMA, but eventually to pro wrestling. And it's an interview that goes through all those different chapters of his life. We talked about his experiences, anecdotes, and stories. So even if you're not a wrestling or pro wrestling fan, take a second and listen to a legend of just a combat sport, an amateur version of it as well, explaining his journey in the world of sports.
All right, we'll do that right now, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about those single sport events.
Joining us today on Down the Aisle Wrestling Podcast, a UFC Hall of Famer, the only Triple Crown winner of the Ultimate Champion, Super Fight Champion, and UFC tournament winner, Dan "The Beast" Severn joins us today. Dan, how you doing today?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. I'm actually out in Phoenix, Arizona, so the sun is shining. I would not be wearing the same outfit back in the state of Michigan without freezing.
Well, in Montreal right now, it's minus 40 degrees Celsius, so I wish I was with you in Arizona, I can say.
Yeah, I trust. Just talking to some of my family members back in Michigan, they just got hit between, I don't know, 1.5 to almost 2 foot of snow in the last 24 hours. And I might go on, gee, I wish I could be there, not.
Exactly. The one thing I want to start with talk to you about, Dan, is I was reading a lot on you the last couple of days getting ready for this interview, and a story really caught my attention. In the mid-'80s at the U.S. national trials for the Olympics, you lost at the final, a controversial loss that changed your whole perspective and your whole career. Can you explain to us how the controversy be in that match and how it changed your career?
Well, the first way how it changed my career, you and I probably would not be conversing here today because I would have retired back in 1984 had everything gone the way it should have gone for me. My background has been heavily involved in the sport of amateur wrestling. So I've been involved in the sport since 1969. I won my first national title in 1972. So my goal was I always wanted to win the Olympic gold medal. And my first Olympic trials, I tried out in 1976 and kept repeating every 4 years, looking for that cycle. And literally, I had tried out for the 76, 80, 84, 88, and 1992 was my last hurrah trying out for it before basically old age was setting on in. So I just tell people that I should have been the Olympic representative. I should have been the guy to have won the Olympic gold medal. But instead, I had to watch the person ahead of me win the gold medal without giving up a single point. And everybody who he went against, I had pinned in underneath 1 minute. So it would have been one of the easiest gold medals in the world for me to have won. And so I just tell people that that incident right there basically inspired me. I'm not sure if I might use that as my word, but I will use that. Was my inspiration to pursue on.
You had in MMA beginning, you're a pioneer, you're a legend in this sport. You were there at the early beginning. UFC 5 was probably the one that caught my attention. Being 11 years old in 1995, watching this VHS tape that I found in my video store and figuring out that it finally did the tournament of all the tournaments that I wanted to see. And it had the occasion to be number 5 because I missed it first. It was the first one I've seen. So you really caught my attention when I was a kid. And watching you, I was a wrestling fan too, watching you step into the octagon looking like a guy I'm used to watching on wrestling, just became a big fan. And that night really sparked my imagination because winning a tournament, fighting 3 different times in one night, it must have been something out of this world. Can you explain to us the mindset you had when you stepped into the octagon the first time that night?
Well, I'll tell you what, again, for your listeners, just to kind of educate them a little bit, because people in the States are definitely a whole lot more forgetful than other countries. Half the time when I say that I do these interviews, I'm being an educator at the same time, just to tell people what the background is, because most are familiar with mixed martial arts, but that term really did not become coined until, I'd say, around the middle 2000s, sometime around that 2005, 2006, was mixed martial arts, the term given to this cage fighting industry. And the product mixed martial arts today has approximately 37 rules. Part of those 37 rules are there's weight classes, time periods known as rounds, weight classes, and you fight one opponent in a given evening. Back in the NHB, otherwise known as No Holds Barred era, there were only 2 rules. Those being, do not bite your opponent. Rule number 2, do not stick fingers in their eye sockets, otherwise known as no eye gouging. End of the rules. And people would say, well, no, you can't do this or you can't do that. Yeah, you could. That's where people couldn't believe that you could actually pull someone's hair. You could grab their clothing. You could knee them in the groin. I mean, it's just, as long as you didn't bite someone or stick a finger in an eye socket, you're good to go. No weight classes, no time period, bare-knuckled action, and it was an 8-man tournament. Just like you said, you had to face and defeat 3 opponents in the same 2-hour pay-per-view that they run today. You had to go through an 8-man tournament. So that was just a whole different raw type of format. So I guess with all that said right now, what was actually your actual question?
Just wondering your mindset going to the octagon when you first fought that night against people of different sports, of different backgrounds, because back then every single competitor had a different background.
Sure.
They were dubbed the wrestlers. Some of them were boxers. Some of them, if you're our gentleman, were boxing with one boxing gloves. So,
Jiu-jitsu, sambo practitioners. Yeah. Everyone knows. I say that most everyone, including myself, was a one-dimensional athlete. You just brought just really one discipline to the cage. So literally, what was my mindset? I think that my amateur wrestling career prepared me quite well. I mean, I did have the opportunity to watch the very first 2 UFC events. A friend of mine, I didn't watch them live on a pay-per-view. A friend of mine who watched the first 2, he copied them on an old VHS tape, and he brought it over to me, and he said, hey, you ought to think about doing this. And, there I'm seeing people getting sucker kicked in the face, and teeth are flying out, and I'm like, these are not exactly skills I possess. But then when he pointed out, he goes, well, look at the skinny guy doing jiu-jitsu. Of course, he was referring to Hoist Gracie, and I had never really been exposed to jiu-jitsu, so I thought, well, it kind of looks like wrestling to me. I figured that if a guy is close enough to throw down, I either move out of range or get closer or clinch so that they can't get any kind of real velocity on it in the first place. And that little tidbit really there served me quite well over the next couple of decades. Walking into there, I really didn't think about anything. I had trained for all of 5 days, an hour and a half a day for the preparation of a no-holds-barred match, but I did not train a single strike. I did not train a single legitimate submission. Unlike today, where you can find a cage in almost any community, because we have these mixed martial arts gyms that have either a cage or a section of fence that athletes can train against or with. The closest thing I could come up with was a professional wrestling ring. So from Coldwater, Michigan, I traveled over to Lima, Ohio with Al Snow and a couple of our other professional wrestling proteges. And they had one old pair of boxing gloves between the 3 of them. They simply just were trying to punch, kick, and do whatever crude type submissions that they could. And when one would get tired, they would give the gloves to the next guy, and I just stayed out the entire time until I was tired, and then I'd take a break, and then we'd just do it again. But I never trained a single legitimate strike, never trained a single legitimate submission. So when I walked into the cage for the first time, I was asked what was my martial art, and I just simply said to them, I'm an American wrestler, and they kind of looked at me like, well, what's that going to do for you? And I go, I'm not sure. I guess watch and find out.
Well, Dan, I'm going on a limb to say that it really did work out for you as far as being a legitimate wrestler. And speaking of wrestling, I want to fast forward a bit to 1995 when you entered Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and you were working with Jim Cornette, which eventually led to you transitioning into the WWE, the WWF at that time. Can you tell our listeners exactly how that transition happened? Did Vince contact you, or did Jim Cornette kind of go to Vince on your behalf? How exactly did you find yourself all of a sudden fighting in Smoky Mountain Wrestling? You're the NWA champion, and then you're in the hottest era of professional wrestling as far as the WWF went.
Well, I mean, my first profession was professional wrestling. I started training professional wrestling as of the 1992 Olympics. Once that was done, I started, a new rule came down from the United States Olympic Committee that allowed athletes to be both amateur and professional simultaneously. Prior to that, had I turned pro, I would have lost my amateur status and would have been ineligible to compete anymore. So my amateur wrestling career meant a great deal to me. So I stayed amateur up until 92, jumped into doing professional wrestling then. And then by 1994, the cage fighting stuff started emerging. And then I just had a dual career since that time.
So kind of like a modern-day Deion Sanders.
Well, yeah. I mean, you see there's a lot of these guys that are right now in either mixed martial arts or professional wrestling that are trying to cross back and forth here right now. You've got Brock Lesnar, you've got CM Punk, you've got, Kurt Angle was talking about it. You have Tito Ortiz that's bounced back and forth. You have, there's still probably half a dozen other guys that I'm just missing their names right offhand that
Del Rio was talking about it.
In both. Go ahead.
Alberto Del Rio was talking about it as well, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's a number of other guys there, too. I mean, I'd say that Brock Lesnar is probably one of the more notable names here right now in the current. And, there's a couple of people even in, I'm just drawing some blanks here on some names.
Oh, no worries, Dan. After you got to WWF, probably one of the more, I wouldn't say the more memorable things from that tenure, maybe the most infamous things was the Brawl for All. Now, if I remember correctly, you were in the Brawl for All. You beat the Godfather, and then all of a sudden, the Godfather was back in the tournament. What exactly happened? And how did the guys backstage take to the WWF Brawl for All?
Well, I mean, I really can't explain too much on that. I mean, it was something that there was a meeting that was called. We were at our show, and I don't remember where we were at the time. But a couple of the road agents asked all the talent to come together in the cafeteria. And they were going to have a quick little meeting there. And then this concept of the Brawl for All was being explained. And that everyone was going to be in the Brawl for All except for Ken Shamrock and Dan Severn. And basically, as soon as I more or less heard that, it was kind of like, well, do you need me here anymore? And then they're like, no, and I kind of left the meeting there. But then several weeks into this Brawl for All concept, I happened to be in back, just probably relaxing, doing whatever. And one of the road agents came up to me and said, how would you like to be in the Brawl for All tonight? And I go, I just said, how much against who? They gave me the price and the opponent. I go, okay. I said, I don't want to wear the gloves though.
Okay.
And they looked at me, they're like, well, you can't go bare knuckle. I go, I said, I'll never throw a single strike. I said, but I will show you what a real wrestler is capable of doing. And, I didn't really get my way. They made me wear the gloves. I actually wish I would have just walked out to the ring and would have just demanded to have them cut them off, because you got to realize this is live while it's happening. I could have gotten away with it at that point in time, but it's just one of those things where when you can look back at it now and think, well, geez, I wish I would have done it like this instead. But as it was, I mean, I tied the Godfather all up, took him down, but it was difficult when you got these 20-ounce gloves on your gloves, really restricting your ability. Even in my career of cage fighting, I only wore gloves within, let's say, the last, I'll say 10 years or less of my career that I wear gloves. And even then, it was changing state by state to where only twice ever in my career was it mandatory that I had to tape my hands. And I said, well, what's the bare bones minimum that you allow to be called taped hands? And they're like, well, one piece of gauze, one piece of tape. And they were almost being facetious as they said it to me. Well, I put one piece of gauze, one piece of tape wrapped around, and as I'm slipping my gloves on, it's falling off. And these athletic commissioners are like, how is that supposed to protect your hands? I go, you don't understand what my skills are. The way that if you have a professional tape job done on your hand, it really restricts your mobility of your hands. I go, I'm not going to win this match because of my striking ability. I'm going to win this match because of my grappling ability. And once I do take people down and put them on their back, or if I'm even underneath them, when I am striking them, most of my strikes are going to be kind of like a hammer type style, to where you're never going to break your hand. The only time that you're going to break your hand is when you throw out direct type of punches where hitting it onto the knuckles. I mean, I went through my entire cage fighting career and never hurting my hands whatsoever.
Oh. Kevin, I just wanted to quickly ask Dan. Growing up, I was obviously a fan of wrestling, but my favorite wrestler growing up was Owen Hart, and you had a very memorable feud for me with Owen Hart. Would you be able just to tell us a little bit about what your memories were like working with Owen, and if you could wrestle anybody, be it past or present, who do you think you would match up the best with nowadays?
Yep, sorry about that. There was some dogs in the background there. I just had to calm them down for a second.
No problem.
So, to answer your question, I mean, it was, it was an honor and a privilege to have done matches with Owen. And in the beginning, I didn't really know who he was.
Mm-hmm.
I knew about the Hart family and their legacy in wrestling. So that was, I was aware of that. Now, getting to know Owen, after a while we got to know him. I mean, he had a great sense of humor. He was a great prankster.
Were you ever a victim of any Owen's ribs?
Say again?
Were you ever a victim of any Owen Hart's pranks?
I think he tried to pull a few jokes on me in matches or try to break me out of character, make me laugh. Yes, in the middle of trying to do something serious live out in front of people.
Okay.
So I mean, I was never on the receiving end of a rib, other than simply trying to, make me break character or something like that. That was, something else. The unique part is there to be at the Hart residence while they were shooting the dungeon match between Ken Shamrock and Owen Hart, and I was the guest referee. So, for several hours while they're setting up the lighting, the sound, and all that kind of stuff down there in the basement, here I am. I'm upstairs, sitting by Father Stu, and just listening to him, just talk about stories and stuff like this. I'm just politely just listening to him just regaling a story, and different people ask him questions and stuff like that. And that was pretty unique. But getting back then to Owen, there was unique things that we could do because of his amateur wrestling background. I could do some more things with him I could not do with a normal professional wrestler. So we could do some things called like pummeling and stuff like this. I could do some legitimate amateur wrestling techniques that he would know how to react to properly and stuff like that. Whereas, most professional wrestlers are just to be so just skilled of doing just one thing, and that's professional wrestling. So, but even as you see now, the influence of mixed martial arts and how several professional wrestlers have included submission techniques or striking type techniques, or they're wearing type parts of the MMA uniform, gloves and things of that nature, or shin pads, kick pads, just so that they're showing that influence from that sector going into the matches. But working with Ken Shamrocks and with Owen Hart and with Steve Blackman, that was kind of like the four of us were involved in a few different things there together.
Dan, if we're looking at your overall career, there's one question that a lot of people ask athlete that did both sports, amateur wrestling and pro wrestling. Compared to fighting and no holds barred or mixed martial art, compared to pro wrestling, which is hardest and which is hardest on your body? Which one was the easiest to do?
Well, I mean, for me, again, my perspective, the professional wrestling was harder for me to do than my shoot career, just because I've been doing my shoot career so many more decades before it. Even though I wasn't doing cage fighting, but being an amateur wrestler since 1969. I won my first national. I started teaching the sport of wrestling in '71. I've won my first national title in '72. So I had so many more decades of experience doing it before by 1992 jumping into it. Prior to that, the mindset that was difficult to me is whether I stepped into a cage, a ring, or on a mat, I had an opponent. Now when I step into the squared circle of professional wrestling, I have a partner. And that was tough for me to do, because now I'm listening for crowd reaction. You're listening to the referee. You're listening to your partner in different ways. So literally, there's just a whole different type of magic that's taking place. Whereas before, I mean, I could walk out in front of thousands of people, and I could tune them out. I could tune the referee out to where all I saw on that mat or that ring was an opponent. I mean, I'm just really good about going at that little focused land and being there. So I had to learn a different thought process going into it, and even executing the various moves and techniques of things in nature. So many of the guys would say, "Lighten up! You're like the pipe wrench on me." And I'm thinking, "Gee, I'm trying to be. I am being light on you. I am being loose." But because a lot of these wrestlers would wear like baby oil too on them, so they would make their muscles stand out and glisten. And I'm thinking, how tough it is to hold on to somebody when they've got baby oil on them, and you're supposed to be responsible for their safety. That is like the most basic rule 101 of professional wrestling is you protect me and I protect you. But I see more and more there really isn't that honor taking place. It's so selfish, or I should say becoming so much more selfish, where most people look at themselves as an individual and they just look at it, what's in it for me? And the reality is, if you want to have a good professional wrestling match, it's a partnership, but it also includes that referee, because if that referee is not there to do their job, that could screw up the psychology of your match as well.
Absolutely. Before we let you go, Dan, is there anything you would like to promote or talk about? We know you're in Arizona right now training the Arizona State University, the Sun Devil, because you're the original Sun-Kissed kid. How is the season going in ASU?
I mean, they've got a brand new head wrestling coach by the name of Zeke Jones. He'll do really quite a great deal of wonders with Arizona State's team. Again, I just tell people I live my life in thirds. Third of the time I'm in Michigan. If people want to know what I have coming on up or what all the things I have done, simply by sharing DanSevern.com, my website, DanSevern.com, because there's too many things to list. I still very active as I travel around doing seminars and everything from mixed martial arts to submission grappling to amateur wrestling, which is what we do as a folk style sport here in the United States, but then also well versed in the two international styles of freestyle Greco-Roman. I've been working with law enforcement since '84, corrections since '94, corrections since '95, but I also worked with air marshals, border patrol, and our military. So I'm very excited about the mechanics that I started teaching back in 1971 has translated well over to a lot of different areas of how I'm able to break down technique, demonstrate it to individuals, understand their rules of engagement, and show them and make them a better widget. Just within the last 4 months, I was approached by the sheriff's department here in Arizona. And one of the commanders said, just touch base with me, and he said, Dan, what do you know about cell extractions? When they had to remove a prisoner from their cell. And I just said, well, I've watched the reality show Lockdown a couple of times where he kind of laughed. He says, well, it doesn't exactly happen like that. And I said, well, just bring me on in. I said, let me watch all aspects of it and let me participate in all aspects of it so I can see what happens if you're the guy that's coming in to get the bad guy. And I go, then let me be the bad guy so I can experience it on all aspects of it on top of just viewing it all. And literally I came up with half a dozen drills for them to do and new ways of doing techniques, of which one, just dealing with the bad guy's legs alone, will probably revolutionize that sector. So again, I'm happy knowing that stuff that I have taken from my amateur wrestling career, professional wrestling career, my cage fighting career, and have been able to combine it all together to where it's what continues to keep me out there and continues to keep me employed as well.
Fascinating. UFC Hall of Famer Dan Severn, we can't thank you enough for being on the show today.
Well, just touch base with me in another 6 months and we'll give you the next update. How's that?
Sounds perfect. Thank you very much, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you. Yep, bye.
I am a real American, fight for the rights of every man. I am a real American, fight for what's right, fight for your life.
And thanks again. Well, I shouldn't thank them. I think you should thank them again, Kevin, because I wasn't involved in that interview. But we hope you enjoyed that. Something a little different, but I think it ties in to sports and all that sort of jazz. I think most of us had either still like wrestling or secretly like wrestling or had a wrestling phase at the very least. I know that I certainly did. I am just a little bit older than Kevin, as anyone knows that listens to this, and my heyday of wrestling was one of the great heydays of the WWF at that time. I saw Hulk Hogan and fight Randy Savage in Ottawa in a main event. I'll give you a bit of a spoiler in case someone has a VHS tape that they still haven't watched yet. Hulk won. It was
I'm shocked. I'm so shocked about that one.
It was really remarkable too because he seemed down and out, Kevin. He seemed down and out, and Savage was kind of cocky, and then all of a sudden his finger came up, and
let me guess, he started shaking his fist, got on one knee, then came back up, then said no, threw him in the ropes, gave him the big boot, went into the ropes, and the leg drop.
Yep, that was pretty much how it ended, and then it was very unfortunate because even as a young man, back at that time, I didn't like Hulk Hogan. I thought it was really fake and and just horrific, and I was. As a little guy, I remember watching, you're going to really date myself here, WrestleMania 3, I believe it was.
From the Pontiac Silverdome in Detroit, Michigan.
Yeah, they had it on closed circuit television at that time.
Ancestors of pay-per-view, my friends.
Yep. So my grandfather was a bigwig in the city of Belleville, and he got me tickets to go to the Quiddy Sports Center to watch it on the closed circuit, and I was in the arena of I don't know if it's probably about 2,000 kids were in there, mostly kids. They were all cheering madly for Hulk Hogan, but I was like the one kid that was going against the grain, was going, "Come on, Andre!" And then I was really angry when Hogan finally ended up winning. I stormed out of the arena, and everyone was like yelling at me and all that. That's my wrestling memory right there.
I was on the same side as you, being a kid from Montreal. Andre the Giant, but better known for Montreal wrestling fan as Le Géant Ferré. I've seen him live when I was a kid. He was the man, the legend for me. He was a myth. When you look at him when you're, 3 or 4 years old, you're so tiny and you're looking at a 7-footer, a legit 7-footer. My imagination was imprinted at that exact moment, and I have to say, it's my guilty pleasure ever since, Duane.
All right. Well, yeah, no, I just got out of the habit of watching it, so I don't anymore. There's only so many times in the hours in the day, but you got to appreciate it. And I've read a few wrestling books and all that, and I find the behind-the-scenes stuff to be fascinating. It is a very interesting world, and the athleticism involved is incredible. It's like on a different sort of level how I might not be a fan of modern dance, for instance, but I can appreciate how athletic someone who's an expert in that is. And I think it's the same with wrestling, right? Even if you're not a fan, you've got to appreciate the athleticism.
And transitioning to real sports with that, it does involve an element of athleticism and real sports and real wrestling. So it was interesting to hear Dan Severn talking about how he used, for him, the mentality of having an opponent when he's actually fighting, or when he's in pro wrestling, having a partner, and it's totally different mindset. And the whole explanation of that, the difference between the two, is very interesting to me too.
All right. Segueing from that's going to be difficult, so we'll just jump into it. What we thought we'd have a conversation, of course, the big event of the weekend, it's in North America particularly, but I think in other parts of the world as well, was the Super Bowl. We're not a big NFL show because the NFL gets so much coverage and it's not an amateur sport, but I thought we'd use the Super Bowl as a jumping off to sort of talk about the phenomena of sports that are much more popular in one part of the world than the other, or are only played in one country. Mm-hmm. Before we do that, we'll talk. Both Kevin and I did watch the Super Bowl. I don't watch a lot of NFL anymore, but I did sit down and make a point of watching that game. It was, I think, a pretty enjoyable contest. I may have had a few adult beverages along the way to help me along with that, but. Which is the only way to really watch the Super Bowl, I think.
Otherwise, you just get angry by the amount of commercials it's supposed to be 3-4 hours, but I think it's basically 80% commercial. It was the worst. I was actually mad watching that TV show just because of the amount of publicity I was subjected to.
Yeah, there is certainly. That's a big controversy here in Canada, for those that don't know, is that, in fact, because we can't watch the American commercials, but to the point that when the CRTC, which is our telecommunications overseers, like the government, when they had hearings, and one of the biggest complaints they had was that we couldn't watch Super Bowl commercials, to the point that the CRTC has now changed the rules in 2017. Starting in 2017, Canadians can watch American commercials, which is really kind of sad that this was something that Canadians were demanding, that we be able to get inundated with ads from outside the country. But at any rate, I digress.
But this year you didn't miss anything. For once, I actually had an American feed, so I watched from my home all the American commercials live, and they were not. There was just like one or two that were memorable. The rest was just bland, so you didn't miss anything this year, Duane.
Yeah, and Twitter is some of the best ways to experience the big live events, and that's the only place you were missing them, kind of, is when people were talking about them on Twitter as they were happening. But you can see them pretty quickly afterwards, regardless. I like the Doritos one. You can have the Dorito when pigs fly, and the kid made the pig fly. That was kind of funny. That was actually Canadian people that made that as well, for a little bit of patriotism there. But other than that, I mean, the nationwide kid that was killed, that was kind of sad. So we have a moment of memory for him. The Budweiser dog.
Yeah, that was I was teared up. It was a little sad, but it was well done, I have to say, with the dog getting straight and the horse saving him from the wolf and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, and the one that was, of course, that they canceled was the GoDaddy dog, where they were, it was thrown out of the truck and then it found its way home and then they gave it away anyway. That's that. We've given up too much time to talking about commercials now. That wasn't my intent, but we went there.
It's part of the Super Bowl, Duane. It's part of the rituals of the Super Bowl. So. Yeah,
and for those, look, when I was a kid, I was a huge NFL fan, but I grew out of it for a lot of reasons, and a lot of ethical reasons, for lack of a better way to put it. But I still do enjoy football, and I especially enjoy watching football at an amateur level. I used to cover college football in Canada, and I still maintain. I don't see it a lot because it interferes with MLS play, so I don't get out very much anymore. But there's an opportunity I try to. I'm the type of person that if I'm walking past a high school field and see a high school game going on, I will stop and watch it for a bit too, because it is really enjoyable live. And I think the ads and the commercial breaks and all that is what takes away from it at a pro level, and what kind of turns me away from it. So at any rate, but that said, Kevin, I thought it was an entertaining game.
Yeah, but it depends which side you're on, especially for the ending of it with that. It wasn't the worst coach called you've seen in any different sport in the last couple of years, right?
Well, I take a different view of it slightly. I think that it was a tremendous read by the defense to read the play, because 99 times out of 100 that goes incomplete. Should you just be tough and just put the short yardage crew in there and plow it over the goal line? That's the conventional thinking. But I think that one of the things that I was arguing a little bit that night with people is that in the NFL and in football, it's such big money and there's so much pressure that they tend towards the conservatism when they make play calls all the time, that it gets a little bit predictable and boring. Mm-hmm. So, because of where it was, if that was like just week 9 of the NFL regular season and that happened, I don't think that people would be calling it the worst call ever. They'd just be going, oh, that was a little bit different. But I think what he was trying to do is, if you look at the stats too, they don't always run it in from the 1, because everyone knows what's happening. They're going to pile up the line and they're going to put the short
flag
to do something like a little play action to roll out to the corner. You see the quarterbacks do that sometimes. Like that kind of play will work sometimes instead of just trying to go straight down the middle with the. Lynch is a great running back. I hear. I don't watch enough of him to really claim it otherwise. But I don't like that people are so quick to be, oh, that was wrong because it wasn't what I would have done. It was wrong because it didn't work, and that's unfortunate. And it was a bit overthrown, and it was a nice read by the secondary there to pull it to make the pick. So hey, away we go.
Here's a question for you, Duane. Does winning the Super Bowl make you a world champion?
The world champion of American football. I guess. Yeah, well, there's no doubt that it's the best American football team in the world there. I know what you're saying. I mean, the only other country that even sort of plays the same game is up here in Canada, but the CFL even has different rules. So using that logic, the Calgary Stampeders are the world champion of Canadian football, right?
True. Probably the only world champion currently in Calgary. Actually, no. There's a couple of amateur champions too. So
yeah. There's a lot of amateur sports in Calgary. Yeah, the oval there. That's sort of the Americans would laugh their off if they heard us say they called the Calgary Stampeders the world champions, but they have as equal claim on that term as the New England Patriots do, right?
Exactly.
Which who won the grand final in the AFL this year?
Sydney?
Was it Hawthorns? No, Sydney. It was the Sydney Swans, I think.
I think it was Sydney. I think I still remember the Sydney Swans.
Okay. I can look that up real quickly when we talk about that. But that's kind of where I wanted to go, is have a conversation about what our favorite or least favorite, or just kind of interesting sports that we've watched that are only kind of played in one place. And certainly the AFL. Both of us do enjoy that a great deal. As I looked that up, you were telling me off air, Kevin, that you're a big fan of the AFL. So what team in the AFL do you follow?
Sydney Swan. For some reason, it's been playing on RDS for the last couple of seasons, and there's 2 teams that just keep on being shown on RDS all the time: the Sydney Swans and Collingwood. So I like the 2 a little bit. I can't say I'm an expert or an aficionado. When it's on, I'm not going to change the channel. But it's really interesting. I've been trying to understand the rules the last couple of years, and I think I finally got the gist of it. It brings me to another type of sports, which is a little bit more popular in the world of sports. Cricket. It's been played all around the world, but only a couple of, 5, 6, 7 countries that it's really popular for, like England, India, Pakistan, Australia, those type of countries. I still don't have a grasp on that game yet, Duane. Cricket it's another beast to try to get a handle of.
Yeah, the thing about cricket, it's not instinctive. The same way that the AFL, actually, I picked it up pretty quick when I started to watch it. Once you figure out what they're doing with the kicks and I don't know the terms that well, but I get what the effort is and what it is, and it's kind of a flow game in a lot of ways, like a momentum game, and you're trying to score anyway, I'm using the wrong terminology. I'm irritating all the Australians, but I do understand.
You're trying to get the ball between
sort of
the
have
posts.
instinctive. Well, the thing I think that makes it easier for me to sort of get the rules and be able to watch a game and understand what's happening is because it is so bloody unique. It's kind of, I guess, rugby, but at the same time, it doesn't have a resemblance to another sport that we're used to, so we're not getting caught up in our mind going, well, why'd they do that? Because in the sport that I recognize, they would have done that. And I think that that's what happens in cricket, is that we watch cricket as North Americans and we go, that's not how baseball works.
You're like, what? The field is 360 degrees? What?
You hit it any way you want, yeah.
But I can only run just there? I don't get it. What do I just what's so complicated? And
My complication with cricket is that is the how you get out and stuff like that. Like I get like, when you're watching the 2020 version of the sport, and I've watched it a little bit because the Indian Super League, I guess it's called the ISL, Indian something. They show that on Sportsnet here in Canada sometimes, and I can watch that and understand a bit what's going. If they hit it over the fence, they get 6. I get that, but
that's an home run, I guess.
yeah, well, that's all I'm watching for too. So, there's another big hit, and then they have the cheerleaders on the sidelines. It's kind of fun.
What's surprising to me is that they're allowed to hit the batter with the ball, and recently a great player passed away because he got hit on the temple with that ball. We all touch the baseball, normal baseball. It's even harder than that, but it's legal to hit the guy, and if you hit the guy, he's out. That's the thing.
Yeah,
I hit
know.
you in the head, you die, but you're still out. It's a rough sport in a way too.
Yeah, well, yeah, certainly that they got to protect the whole thing. Yeah, it's a strange little rule that we're not used to again. Because in baseball, it's the opposite, right? So we got to wrap our head around that. Cricket's there was a stat that came out because the Americans love to always point out that how many people watch the Super Bowl and claim that it was the biggest, this and that. And there was, I don't even think it was the biggest football game watched on the weekend. I think Manchester City might have been
650 million for Chelsea and Manchester City.
Yeah, so that was by far the most watched football game of the weekend.
6 times more people watched that than the Super Bowl in the States.
Yeah, but the cricket, the World Cup Finals cricket, I think the 2020 version was more watched than the Super Bowl as well. So we have to be careful calling that a one country sport, but it is certainly a one region sport in a lot of ways. It's kind of a Commonwealth sport with the exception of us here in Canada. It's a bit. That speaks to sort of how sports evolved too. That it didn't pick up in Canada. I mean, if you look at the Canadian national team, which has qualified for the World Cup a couple times. It's mostly expats. It's mostly people of Pakistani and Indian descent that live in Canada now. There's not a lot. It's just not played by us. It's not something I've ever been exposed to. I mean, I've tried most sports in the world. If I can get my hands on the ball or a puck or a stick or whatever I need, I will try the sport. But cricket's one that I've never been fortunate enough to try. And I would always love to pick up a bat or and try and hit it. I would love to do that, but never had the chance, and that's just because we're not exposed to it. And it's because baseball is what took over here. It's because of our association with our proximity to the United States, and the country has evolved in a similar way sporting wise. It's why we play tackle football instead of rugby more often too.
No, and making a full circle to the interview we had earlier on the show, even wrestling can be a sport that it's more popular in one country than the other. That's why it was took out of the Olympic and it got put back in after a lot of complaints and a lot of backlash with that decision. But United States and a couple of other countries, but the Eastern Bloc, the old Eastern Bloc is really good at wrestling. But the United States is a powerhouse in wrestling, and the culture of amateur wrestling in the States is something unique in the world as well.
Yeah, wrestling's a great sport. It speaks to like the individualism, that combat kind of situation. High school wrestling, I think, in the United States and in Canada to a certain extent is a popular thing. I was a high school wrestler, so maybe I'm a little biased that way. But there's a certain rite of passage to being a wrestler, right? Like you're proving yourself and all that sort of stuff. So that's kind of fun. You spoke to getting out of the Olympics, and there's another sport that's not played in a lot of places that remains in the Olympics, even though sports that are more widely played are out, and that's handball. World Championships going on right now in that as well. So, and that speaks to the powerhouse of where the Olympics are. The Eastern Europeans, the old school Europeans, they love their handball because that's what they're used to, but they don't understand sports that they're not exposed to. Baseball, for instance.
True. Very true.
Yeah. Couple other ones that I wanted to point out there. One on I worked at West. I've covered the Calgary Stampede. I've covered the National Finals rodeo, and the horse sport. So that's an interesting one that I have some very ambivalent feelings about the rodeo. It's kind of if you're, the Westerners are looking and are rolling their eyes at me right now. But I don't know. Is it sport when you're using animals in that way? I don't know.
Well, it's different than a horse racing too, because you're not necessarily doing something. Yes, it's athletic with the horse, like there's carriage race, But the rodeo itself, just the treatment of the animal, yes, they're well treated, but I have to agree with you in a way. Yes, it's a sport if you go by the definition of sport we said on the last show. But is it something? It's something that it's really hard for me to find something to interest me in that sport, because I'm not I was getting Western. I don't want to put the region on it, but I'm not somebody that it's interested in those type of event, because I was never really exposed to it, we can say. So it's hard for me to understand it and to like it in a way, we could say.
Yeah, when I covered it, I was a fish out of water. I mean, I was the Toronto boy that was living out west, among other things. But that said, talking to the athletes, to the Cowboys, they call themselves Cowboys. They prefer that term. They are absolutely incredibly athletic, and they're incredibly dedicated to their sport. They don't make a lot of money in the professional rodeo circuit. We're talking. I'll give you an example. I worked in rural Saskatchewan, in the southwest corner of Saskatchewan, a little town called Maple Creek, and it had a professional rodeo. Like every little town out west has its pro rodeo for one weekend a year. The pro rodeo rolls into town, and Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is all rodeos run for the 3 days. Friday night, Saturday, all day Saturday, and then Sunday until like 4 o'clock usually or so. That's your typical schedule. And there will be 3 rodeos running per weekend across the prairies in the Canadian Road Professional Rodeo Tour. And the reason there's 3 is because inevitably what the Cowboys do is they will go to one rodeo on Friday night. They will, if there are events going on, then they will go to one on Saturday, and then they will go to one on Sunday. That's just how it's set up to allow them to go to 3 different, because the prize money is such that if you do, usually there's, in the bareback riding, for instance, you might have like 25 Cowboys that are competing, and only 5 of them are going to get money, and 5th place is going to get like $500, and 1st place is going to get $2,000. And you think about this for a minute.
Just the expense of traveling there, it's like that. It's like $500 at least.
Yeah, these guys are like, I'm in the southwest corner of Saskatchewan. There probably is on the Friday night, you might have a guy that did a rodeo in Manitoba. Rode his horse for his 7 seconds, got his
I thought
score.
you were going to say rode his horse from Manitoba to Calgary.
That's a different kind of aesthetic. That'd be more interesting. But anyway, then they jump in their car and they drive overnight, probably get 5-6 hours sleep, ride their horse on Saturday in Maple Creek, and then they'd get back in the truck, drive overnight again, and do something in BC, which, if you know the distances I'm talking about, is insane. They're driving like 7 hours between these rodeos, and they set their weekends up like this, and with the hopes that maybe they'll get in the money in a couple of them so that they're breaking even. Like the top guys make, the way the money list qualifies them to the year-end events, which have bigger prize monies, including the Calgary Stampede, which has ultimately the potential to win $1 million, but it's hard to do the $1 million win. Yeah. That involves you winning multiple times in Calgary. At any rate, that's what they're doing. They're all just chasing this once-in-a-lifetime chance, and they're basically, if they qualify to the National Finals Rodeo Final as a top 10 rider, Cowboy, they're probably made like $12,000 or $13,000. Think about the expenses attached to that, and these guys are basically competing to break even. You have to be athletic to that sport to do it, and it is athletic, like I said.
And putting their body on the line too. I mean, it's dangerous. Not just athletic; it's dangerous.
It's insane.
It's not even dangerous. Is not a good word for it.
Yeah, it's absolutely mental what they're doing.
It's extreme.
And look, there's some rough around the edges aspects to the sport. As an Easterner, it's hard to wrap your head around, like shocking the animals to get them to buck and stuff like that. But however, there is oversights to assure that the animals are being treated to a certain level of respect. So, most ranchers that I met when I lived out west were incredibly respectful of the environment and of their animals. So that we'll leave it at that. But yeah, crazy sport. And sometimes I think about the origin of rodeo, like how drunk were they came up with the idea to jump on the bull. How drunk were they? hey Rex, I dare ya.
Have you seen that bull? It's the craziest bull ever. $20, you can't mount it.
It's exactly what happened. You know it. There's a lot of rum went into that night, the first rodeo. Oh, anyhow.
That goes. It's like in Spain. It's like you mentioned bull, the Pampeluna running with the bull. That's another insane thing. You just take Bull, put him on top of the hill, let him loose in the street, and just drunk people just running in front, trying to get away from them. In white, so you can really see if they get poked. You see the blood coming through the clothes. That's the only reason they're wearing white. It's just... that's another weird event that goes on in the world.
I love watching the when you see video of that. And inevitably, you've got like the guys that are kind of do it. They're like
the guy that goes out of the bar at 7 o'clock in the morning saying, screw it, I'll run with the Bulls.
And then you got your stupid backpacker tourist that's out there that's probably still drunk, and they're hugging the wall, and they run out as fast as they can to try and just like kind of go behind the ball a little bit, and then run back to the wall, and they go change their pants. Probably it's I don't really I shouldn't say I don't get that. I probably would have done it if I was over there when I was 25. Hell, I'd probably do it now. Who's kidding who?
Then you get the one guy who has no clue what's going on, just coming out of the bar and just want to get home. Just want to cross
What
his
the
face.
hell?
What's going on? There's animals and drunk running. I just want to go home. That's
some great festivals in Europe. There's I was in this little Spanish town where they have this. It's not really a sport, but they have this moss festival every year. It's a tiny little place in the northwest of Spain. And all the men in the town completely cover themselves in moss and walk to the end of town where they have some kind of dance thing out there. And it all speaks like the Moors apparently did this to scare away some other, I don't know. It's
like 2,000 years ago.
Exactly. That's Europe for you, man. But anyway, and then there's the tomato fight one. That looks fun.
The tomatina.
Yeah.
In England, I think it's in England or Scotland or Ireland, I don't know, the cheese race when you go downhill, it's a really steep hill. I think it's even illegal now because too many people got hurt or paralyzed with that race. But that's classic. They're
chasing for a big, like a, what do they call it? A big thing of cheese. Like that's winner gets the cheese. There's another one too where it's an island. I think it's an island off of England or Ireland.
Shin kicking competition?
Where, no, there's two sides of the island, and like the whole idea is there's a little tiny ball.
Oh, yeah.
And they have to touch the ball either into the ocean or onto the wall at the top of the thing. And
it lasts for days and days.
Yeah, and they like kill each other basically to get this stupid thing down there. It's been going on for years, and it's funny too because it's natural divides. So like the one side of the island is where they live. It's divided. Is much more populated than the other side. So there's like twice as many people trying to push the ball into the ocean than trying to get it to the wall.
It's like 20,000 people versus like 18,000 people. It's hilarious.
Yeah, and the people that were trying to hit the wall, they haven't won in like 20 years. So they're just dedicated to just win it the one time.
This year's our year, Duane. We're getting that ball on top of that wall this year.
Oh, we should invent a sport and do that. And push a ball between Toronto and Montreal or something.
Well, we used the shin kicking competition in England. I think it's in Ireland, actually. When you get two guys just in front of each other, just hitting each other's shins. That's all they do. And the first one to stop loses.
Makes rhythmic gymnastics seem more reasonable, doesn't it?
Yeah, a lot of weird events is happening in the world of sports. Well, you can call that sport in the entire world. It's really, we live in a weird world, Wayne.
Yeah. The Aussies, I'm sure there's lots out there because they're weird people. They do weird things down there too. So, and then here in Canada, we basically put sharp objects on our feet and give ourselves sticks and try and chase a rubber puck around on ice. So, we all have our own vices that get us through the sporting day, right?
Well, how drunk were you when the first guy was like, yeah, look at that ice. I bet I put knives underneath my feet. I can hit that little rock and put it in that net. The guy had to be drunk, too.
Yeah, or, in Austria, when someone says, I dare you to put those 2 2x4s on your feet and slide down the mountain.
Are you crazy? The first guy went down the strafe at Kitzbühel.
Yeah.
It's another, I dare you, $20 if you go down there.
That's how every good deed started with a bottle of rum.
So basically, if we learn something today, alcohol is the genesis of every sports on earth.
The solution to and result of all of it. What's the Homer Simpson quote? The cause of and solution to all of life's problems. On that note, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and we're going to talk very seriously about the Australian Open.
I suppose the most famous part of this games is the shin kicking. Shin kicking started out as Cotswold wrestling. It was trips. So you do very similar to Cumberland wrestling or judo. You hold your opponent by the shoulders and you attempt to trip or kick. It developed into shin kicking when the kicking became more vigorous, and it was quite brutal up until the 1850s. Serious injuries were very common. We now have rules. We don't allow steel toe cap boots, don't allow boots at all, we allow padding, but the kick can only be between the ankle and the shin.
If your phone, like mine, sucks and it's constantly being filled up by all of these podcasts, all of these archived podcasts of the 5 Rings and 2 Solitodes, there is a solution. Stitcher Radio, everyone. Download the app. It is the greatest app that has ever been produced for the iPhone and for the Android. Download it now. You won't fill your phone up with more 5 Rings and 2 Solitudes podcasts because it'll all be there on demand for you to play anywhere you want on Stitcher Radio.
And we're back, and we're very serious now here in the 5 Rings podcast. We're going to have a conversation about the Australian Open. I don't know what accent that was that I was trying to throw at you there, but yeah, we're going to talk about the Aussie Open. Look, we were very excited here in Canada about the 2 young Canadians run. We talked about that a little bit briefly on our show last week, but ultimately in the end, who were the winners, Kevin?
Djokovic and Serena Williams.
The 2 old school there. And Serena, I think, gets a lot of attention, and she is, the last great American hope on either side of the gender line, right? There's not a lot of American men doing much right now at all. The American woman, there's another young American woman that did well and played Serena in that run-up. She's just a phenomenal athlete that continues to go. But I wanted to focus more on Djokovic because is it because he's dull that people don't like him that much? Because he is doing phenomenal things. He could, in my mind, I was thinking, who's going to stop him from winning the Grand Slam this year? I don't know. The French Open will be his challenge, but this is a guy that certainly looks like he could win 4 of the next 6 majors. Do you not think?
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think it's not a dull because he's dull. I think it's a 2 or 3 factor combined. The fact that he's from Eastern Europe, still the whole Cold War feeling. It's still, yes, we're 2 decades removed from that, the end of the Cold War, but still, you get that image or that perception or that preconceived notion of him being cold, being not charismatic, and to be fair to Djokovic, he's exactly the opposite. He's really charismatic. He's really a fun and good-natured person. When you watch documentaries about him, he is really driven. He has a lot of ambition. He's been living in Monaco for years now, training basically out of the clay courts of Monaco whenever he can to perfect his clay game. And I think this year he's going to try to do what not really anybody did before, like you said, trying to win all 4 majors. And like you say, Nadal being injured, Federer being maybe
old.
Yeah, I was going to say Father Time might have caught up with him. It's going to be to either Murray, if he can get back there, or Nishikori, Wawrinka, Raonic, and the new generation that come up. I think he still has a year or 2 of dominance left in him, and I think he's like the heel of tennis. We talked about wrestling on this show. Djokovic is like the heel. He's like the champion that you want to see get beat by somebody that you like better.
Yeah. He just doesn't have, Nadal obviously has, the looks and the sort of the Spanish, kind of charisma that goes out there. Federer is the old guard that's been around for a long time. He has a certain kind of sophistication feel to him as well. Speaks to the sport, speaks to a lot of people's aesthetics. Whereas Djokovic is, he's just Djokovic out there. Ronak actually, outside of Canada, has a similar sort of reputation, and it could be the fact that Ronak, for those that don't know, is born in that part of the world. They're born 20 minutes apart or something like that.
It's just a different type of they emanate as a person. The aura of that person is a little bit more stoic, and it's hard to get that personality across that camera in that type of personalities when you like Djokovic or Raonic, when you get that aura around you. Even though there might be great and good people and really charismatic, if you don't push it on TV, it's not going to show it. And I think it's one of the reasons why Djokovic is not as popular as he should be, or not as recognized as he deserves to be, because he's one of the best athletes in the entire world.
Absolutely, yeah, and that was the point that I just thought of when he won that. And I didn't watch as much of the Aussie Open as I usually would, and I would the other majors, simply because of the time change and everything else, and it's you don't want to disrupt people's sleep that much. But I did make a point of watching a few matches, and particularly Raonic's quarterfinal, which I thought that Milos played much better than he has in previous matchups against the top guys. But you can still see that gap in quality was still there, and that's the main reason that makes me think that Djokovic is just. Nadal's injuries, I think, have caught up to him. I think Federer, he's going to have some blips here and there, but as you say, Father Time eventually is going to capture all of this, right? And he had that nice run at the end of last year, but I think it might be done now. He might have expended his last bit of energy there. And then you look at the next generation, and they're just not quite there yet. And Murray's the tweener.
That's a very good term.
Yeah, and I just don't. And he had his run too, where he got his Wimbledon title, and some injuries slowed him down a bit. And he probably will be the next his biggest foil in the next little bit. But I just think Djokovic, like I said, 4 of the next 6. That's my prediction on him, and I give him an outside chance. If you're a wagerer. I might put a little money down on him winning the Grand Slam this year, because that would be certainly probably what his goal is, I suspect. And it's hard to see someone stopping him.
If he stays healthy, I don't see anybody stopping him in the short future because of all the reason we said, but just because the way he keeps himself too. He's always in a good physical shape. He doesn't expend too much energy. He doesn't play in a way like Nadal did, where he really exposes his body and his muscle to injuries, just while the style of play he has and the way he holds his racket. It might be as stupid as it is, but the way Nadal hits the ball, he puts more twerk and more pressure on his arm, elbow, shoulder, and that over the years really caught up to him. The way Djokovic plays is more similar to a Federer, more fluid, more, I don't want to say classy tennis, but more of a precise and defined natural body movement compared to a Nadal. And I think because of those reasons, he's going to stay healthy and he's going to dominate the ATP.
Yeah. We didn't talk about this off air, but I'll throw this at you a little bit. I'm just thinking right now, winning a tennis Grand Slam, that's got to be, if not the most impressive individual achievement you can have in world sport in a single season. It's got to be right up there. Do you not think? Like, there what's equatable to winning that? Because you have different surfaces, just the grind. It's over a whole calendar year. That's a tough ask.
I don't think nothing compares to maybe cycling. If you take example the Tour de France, which is one type of race, if you take in cycling on cobbles and then a track, something like maybe a cycler like Bradley Wiggins did in the Olympics, winning the Tour de France, the Olympic, and the World Championship in the same year. I think that would equate to winning the tennis Grand Slam. But that's one of the only thing I see that has different intangible tournament style, different surfaces, and by yourself trying to get that glory. So it's the only, golf is really different, but tennis and that cycling triple crown that Wiggins sees, the only comparable I see.
Yeah, with golf, with golf, you're looking at 2 different types of things. You have your old world, like links courses is the term I'm looking for the British Open, or the Open as they prefer to call it over there.
The Claret Jug.
And then the rest are kind of the same, right? Like, I mean, the roughs are higher and they're tough courses and blah, blah, blah. But essentially, they're just North American type or world type courses with the exception of the links courses, right?
You don't have a tournament on snow and then on sand and then on grass. It's the same surface. It's always grass.
Yeah, you got, 2 hard courts, which are bookending your season with the clay and the grass in the middle, and the grass being such a unique surface too that's only really played on for 3 weeks a year. So it is a lot of unique challenges there on the tennis side of things that makes it to me think it would be one of the greatest achievements that we've seen in time. The track and field, I think, has some similarities. I mean, if you can do that sprint double with the long jump, which we've seen in the past, like Carl Lewis did that for years. And then you throw in another one, that's the 4 gold medal chase amongst your sprinters. But still, it's a similar skill, just with a field event thrown in when you have the sprint double plus long jump, which we don't see a lot of them do that anymore. It's kind of a shame. That to me always represented the ultimate in sprinting, to be able to combine that with the long jump championship on the track and field side. But I still think tennis has got to get the edge as your most impressive single season possibility.
And it's a worldwide event too. It's every single major is played in a different part of the world that has a different vibe, different feeling, different decorum, different traditions and rituals, and different costumes. You're looking at Wimbledon that you have to be able to wear or not. So all that together makes, if Djokovic can win a Grand Slam in tennis, it makes it as one of the most successful season in the history of sport. It has to be.
Certainly. And he's, well, we can say this. He's the only one that can win a Grand Slam this year, having won the Australian Open, along with Serena Williams, of course, on the women's side. All right, Kevin, this is a long show because the interview was long, but we do thank you for listening again. Dear listeners, we appreciate you. Any feedback's always welcome, and I'll let Kevin give that, and then I'll let Kevin say goodbye.
If you like that wrestling interview, you can always listen to Down the Aisle Wrestling Podcast with myself and Rob McDonald, Two Solitudes Podcast, Off the Woodworks, Five Rings Podcast, and until next time, on your podium, folks.